Welcome to PV Magazine Live. This is Christian Roseland, America's editor at PV Magazine, and we're here at the Solar Power International Trade Show in Las Vegas. I'm joined by Dr. Charlie Gay, who is the new director of the SunShot Initiative at the U.S. Department of Energy. Dr. Gay, thank you for taking the time to talk with me.
My pleasure, Christian.
So Dr. Gay, you've been in the industry for quite some time. As I understand, your career began in solar in the 1970s, and you've done a lot over the last 40 years. You've been director of NREL, you've been in positions at Applied Materials and other tool equipment makers. Tell me, when you look at the solar industry today, did you ever imagine that we would be here in the 1970s, and how does it look different from what you saw back then?
I think in the 1970s, we projected that we could get to these kinds of costs that we see today, but the scale and appreciating the magnitude of what that scale looks like is way beyond the vision that I had back in the 70s.
Wow, very interesting. So, as now with the United States Department of Energy through SunShot has recently released $107 million in various program funding. I noted that a lot of it went to research and development. A lot of it went, sort of upstream to new products, cell and modules, manufacturing processes that will come to fruition over time. And what's interesting to me about the funding of manufacturing in the United States and of R&D is that so much of the global cell and module manufacturing is not happening here. It's happening in Asia, it's happening in China, Taiwan, and Southeast Asia. What is your perspective on solar manufacturing in the United States, and why is funding R&D and manufacturing a priority for SunShot?
Well, there's actually a very large number of businesses based in the United States that touch the solar business value chain. So it starts with tools to make solar materials. It starts with materials companies who make the polymers that are used. It starts with companies who manufacture silicon, so Hemlock Semiconductor, DuPont. They're major corporations who manufacture materials now in the U.S. that are used globally. The large number of jobs in solar today are associated with primarily installation. There's over 200,000 people who've got good paying jobs related to the deployment of solar. And because the costs have come down as far as they have, we have this incredible opportunity to expand the number of places where solar is used here in the U.S. So a lot of our emphasis is on the downstream training of installers, the Solar Vets program that helps military veterans who are returning here to the U.S. find gainful employment in the industry. The industry is very broad.
This is definitely true. So you recently were appointed to the head of SunShot at DOE. You follow, the last permanent director was Min Lee, who did some amazing work. While you're head of SunShot, what should we expect, and what are your goals for this position?
My primary goals are to see the expanded deployment of solar. And I like being in the Department of Energy because it's not just about solar, but it's about all the other clean energy technologies that are available to us to use for making an impact on climate change. The Office of Electricity in the Department of Energy is very relevant to what we want to do when we try to put solar into the distribution network and finding ways to get that handshake, the digital information to flow rapidly enough so that it's easy for people who are down at the detail of the distribution network to be able to manage all of the resources that we can now put on the grid cost effectively.
Now, obviously, this is a very exciting part of what's going on with solar right now. As we reach higher penetrations, we start to encounter these technical issues with integration, and we start to, look at a future where the primary energy source is solar, and this means a real change to the grid. And I know there's a lot of great work that's gone on in New York State. There's a lot of work that's been funded by Department of Energy. At this point, what do you see as the biggest challenges to integrating solar, particularly on the distribution system?
The two-way communication. We need to be able to have information not just about receiving electrons, but being able to send electrons to places on the grid where they're needed. So for me, there's a huge potential for new software startups to participate in this industry. A lot of them are at incubators like Powerhouse in Oakland, developing those kinds of tools that are useful not just here in America, but internationally as well.
And are there any specific states or areas or examples that you think are particularly promising in terms of this development of grid integration?
Well, Hawaii has basically become our test bed for grid integration, with 1 out of 6 houses in Hawaii having solar on the roof. My grandfather was born on the island of Niihau, which is at the end of the Hawaiian chain, and it was the first island in Hawaii to be totally solar powered. So I'm very pleased to have sort of the legacy of the history of being able to see what can be done in Hawaii and learning from those experiences and adapting them to the continental U.S. I think is where we're going to see the most advances being made in integrating solar into the grid.
Fascinating. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me.
My pleasure, Christian. Thanks for allowing me to be part of the show.
And this is PV Magazine Live. We're here at the Solar Power International Trade Show in Las Vegas, and I've been talking with the new director of the SunShot Initiative at DOE, Dr. Charlie Gay.